The Maryland athletic director says the Big Ten is ready to expand. Did we just lose Kansas and Utah? This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. Utah and Kansas, the Big Ten. That is the room. Brett McMurphy on 3 CBS. A lot of folks are talking about if those two schools legitimately are being shipped off in the Big 12, and TJ Pittenger of College Football Addiction joins. It's not just drumming up some drama and controversy. It's the middle of football season. I would love to talk about football. We will talk about football. But first, are those two schools in the dead of night gone? Then Missouri has no idea what will hit them with Kansas this week. And I think the Jayhawks are more prepared, more senior laden. They've got more guys who've been in the program and understand how to win, and they will win in Columbia. I can explain to you why. And BYU will make Stanford will cancel its football program after what is about to happen in Provo. I'll give you a complete breakdown of that game as well. One of the bigger games in the Big 12 Power 4 game. And if you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. TJ, what's happening with the Big Ten right now?
We got a lot to talk about, but before we get to games, we were going to have to talk realignment because it sounds like there might be a couple of teams that the Big Ten is eyeing. Let's get into it.
Realignment never ends. And I hate it. I hate that it's such a big talking point, but it has to be when you get news like this. The Maryland athletic director saying the Big Ten is committing, in essence, to adding a couple of more teams by 2020, by 2030, 2029, that range. They want to go likely to 20 teams in total. Brett McMurphy has built his short list. This isn't just here goes Drake and TJ again talking about realignment. No, like, the Maryland athletic director has told us the Big Ten's future plans, and now it's Kansas and Utah that a lot of people have in the middle of those plans. Now, we've talked about in the past, would Clemson make the move? Would Florida State make the move? Are those the two schools that conference is legitimately looking toward in realignment if they do go to 20, and they will go to 20 in my opinion. But past that, they're going to have to get to that even number, and the other two that could be included in that would come from the Big 12. Kansas gives you an elite level of basketball. Utah would like you to know that Utah should be in the Big Ten. And again, this isn't just spewing stuff. There are legitimate analysts with On3 or CBS that are telling us that those are two that would be on the short list of the Big Ten that they would call and try to pick up, if Notre Dame doesn't, try to pick up a Kansas, a Utah, because basketball is so good with the Jayhawks, and for the Utah Utes, football has been so good. A couple of Pac-12 championships right before they exited the conference. When the conference fell apart, they come into the Big 12. They were 5-7 in year one, but they already look much improved this season. And even if Kyle Whittingham is not the coach of the future, which he's not, this is likely his final season, Morgan Scalley is still there. Whittingham Jr. is waiting in the wings as it sits for Utah if they continue their success. TJ, we're talking about two schools in the Big 12 that could be worth a lot of money. I don't think they're the right two schools, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Big Ten actually does pick up the phone and Tony Petitti says, those are the two that I want.
Could they get, you kind of consider, not that the Big Ten is lacking for money, but could they get them kind of like they did Oregon and Washington, not to slight these two programs, but they get them at a reduced rate, right? And so are they the right program? Who knows? But if we're not going to teach an economics class here while we're on. We could, if anybody would like to sign up for our Patreon for that.
You can teach that. You take that one.
But is it kind of a buy low, sell high type of thing where you make an investment, you pump a Utah and a Kansas full of Big Ten money, even if it's a reduced share like Oregon and Washington are having to do? And what could that end up turning into when they're playing these big time premier programs? So I don't know. I think that could be an interesting angle for us.
Yeah, it certainly could be one of those situations where the Big Ten says, hey, we understand you may not be up to snuff of an Ohio State or a Michigan, and Utah and Kansas are not. That is something that is easy to admit, but they are certainly up there with Maryland. They're there with Illinois or Purdue or Indiana. I mean, Kansas specifically with their basketball prowess is better than any school in the Big Ten Conference. And so what I would look at with this is the leverage Tony Petitti has to say, we can give you $38 million per year. That's not a full share of Big Ten revenue. We can give you $38 million per year, and it's more than you are making in the Big 12. If it's a 66% revenue increase, and you have where the Big Ten had all of the leverage with Oregon and Washington was, hey, if you don't want to come, fine. go die by the wayside in college football. We don't have to take you. We can give you a half share. We can give you a quarter share. It doesn't matter. You're stuck. Utah and Kansas are not stuck. They now have leverage power as well to say we need more money, and it has to be X amount of dollars for the entire rebrand. I mean, when schools leave a conference, it's not just, oh, goodbye, see you later, here's a couple dollars. This is a buyout with the Big 12. This is coordinating with Fox and ESPN. This is rebranding your entire university, and as it plays with the logos on the lockers, it goes down to the minute details of things like that for Kansas and Utah, and that's where we'll get into this. I don't think it's possible. I don't think they will leave. I don't think this is real, but I do think that in the event, and there will be an event where the Big Ten wants to go to 20, those two schools get a call. I just don't think they say yes.
How bad would it be for the Big 12 if they did? Or do you not project that it would be a very big deal?
You lose 2 5-7 football teams from last season. Like
Utah looked good. I know this isn't a UCLA breakdown, but
yeah.
Where's Utah in your Big 12 rankings right now? Just quickly, and then
they're 3. I've got Iowa State at 1. I think Iowa State has I think that their win against Kansas State is better than a win against UCLA, especially going to Ireland and doing. I think Kansas State is better than UCLA. TCU at 2 because the Horned Frogs.
Holy cow! They just scored again.
Yeah, they made a mockery of a 6-time Super Bowl champion head coach on primetime. Utah at 3. They had the most impressive Big 12 win that wasn't in that standalone slate of either Ireland or TCU playing on a Monday night. Utah kind of got thrown to the wayside in that Pac-12 After Dark game, but they looked really good. Here's the deal, though. We cannot put a brand valuation on one game. Yeah. We cannot give Utah a free pass to the Big Ten based off one game, and I don't think Tony Petitti will do that. The commissioner of the Big Ten will do that either. 5-7 teams from last season. Kansas has been a perennial bottom dweller in Big 12 football. They're not anymore. I like Lance Leipold a lot. I think Utah does give you a whole lot in football. I'm just not so sure that if the Big Ten could get North Carolina, if the Big Ten could get even Miami, that they would go with Utah over those brands.
We're going to talk about that Kansas-Missouri game in just a moment, so stick around and make sure you're subscribed because that'll be our very next segment. But ultimately, don't think this happens. What are you kind of alluded to this, I think, unless I was kind of hearing you wrong. Who are the 2 teams that are most likely to go?
I do think that Clemson and Florida State still have to squarely be in that conversation because of what we heard out of the SEC. Not that Florida State is begging to get into the Big Ten. I don't feel like, and you're the Florida State guy, let's be honest with ourselves. It's far sexier to go to the SEC. If you're Florida State, you want to be in the SEC from a revenue standpoint, a brand standpoint. Clemson, I think, would say the exact same.
Sure.
Greg Sankey, behind closed doors from a lot of the murmurs we've heard, doesn't want to compete with Florida. He doesn't want to compete with South Carolina. He wants to have a stronghold on new states, and maybe he goes and gets North Carolina because of that. If you're Florida State, this is a move that pays you way more money. You can, in my opinion, be more competitive faster in the Big Ten just because it's a little bit easier than the Big 12 in competition, which is a little bit easier than the SEC in competition. Weird to say when the SEC has missed 2 consecutive national championships. But I do believe the Big Ten, by and large, you have more cupcakes at the bottom of the conference to toy around with. Florida State would benefit from that. And then Clemson's kind of that same boat of, hey, we can give you $20 million more per year. This would look good for you. And so those are the 2 that I would have at the top of the list that make the most sense, that would probably balk, that probably wouldn't balk at the money of the Big Ten. And in the Big 12, I think BYU and Texas Tech are 2 brands that are either bigger or will soon become bigger than Utah and Kansas due to their investment in football, the NIL money running through there, the donorship that's come in for those 2 schools. But as of today, that's another reason why I don't think Utah and Kansas would make sense to the Big Ten. And even if they do get that phone call, I don't think conversations would go very far. They're not going to pull a Memphis and give $200 million or something to go to the Big Ten, but it's not going to come to fruition, in my opinion. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. That's what makes a Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, performance, deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. Mazda offers more than safety. It's won the 2025 IHS Top Safety Pick plus awards than anyone else. As an athlete focuses on every detail, Mazda does the same, from metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather. Feel it the moment you get behind the wheel. Smooth handling and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved with Mazda.
All right, on Kansas and Missouri, Drake. Is the wrong team favored in this game? Like, I hate to do this because, yeah, I know it's the SEC and everything else, but man, I really like Jalen Daniels here. You want to talk me off that ledge or get me a little bit closer to it?
I don't want to talk you off the ledge. Jalen Daniels is back. 7 touchdowns, 1 interception this season, 85 QBR, 16th in the country. He has been electric. Now, let me do this. The wrong team is not favored. Missouri should be favored at home. The SEC juggernaut we all love, Eli Drinkwitz. Come on. Jalen Daniels has played college football since 2020. Make fun of it all you want. He's in season 6. Make fun of it all you want, but it's not going to change the fact he's still the quarterback, passing at an 80% clip. And what you'll say then from there is, well, he played Wagner and Fresno State. He was actually better against Fresno State than he was Wagner. We know Fresno State is a much better football team than Wagner. Transitive property doesn't always work in college football. Missouri fans keep up. Doesn't always work in college football. But Fresno State just had a double-digit win against Georgia Southern, and Georgia Southern may be one of the more competitive teams that we see out of the group of 5 this season. Fresno State winning that game makes it even more impressive that Kansas beat the Bulldogs 31-7, and Daniels in that game 18 for 20, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, had 4 touchdowns against Wagner last week, had 8 carries, 47 yards as well, 23 yards, his longest rush of the night against Fresno State. He's going to be a catalyst, an X factor. I think Bo Pribula of Missouri can be good. And Missouri looked good against the University of Central Arkansas, but I'll say it again, UCA could play William and Mary and William not show up and still lose. Like, this is a very bad football team that Missouri just took on. I can't, no two ways to beat around that bush. And not to say Wagner's great. Again, this isn't a Wagner team that I believe is going to win a national championship at the FCS level. But Kansas proved to me in week 1 against Wagner that their floor is pretty high. They're not a sucky team. Kansas State has proven their floor is low. If you play close in an FCS game or you lose an FCS game, that shows me your floor is at the very bottom. If you blow them out, we've now learned, okay, you don't completely suck. That's what I learned in week 1. In week 0, and since Fresno State has that win against Georgia Southern, we actually learned against FBS opponents, Kansas can be legit. Their defense is legit. They've allowed 7 points per game in their first 2. I think they've got a much larger edge than most people expect, and I think Kansas is going to win this game.
So you mentioned that 7 points in both games. You would think that Missouri scores more than 7 in this thing. If they don't, easy Kansas win, which I don't think it will be. I think this will be tough. I certainly think that both teams, I think we're in for a classic. In a week 1 where we had a billion great games, there are fewer this week, but this is one of them that people should absolutely tune into. The border war, right? So thoughts though on the defense. Pribula looked good. And again, I know it's one game. I know they had a lot of questions about who the quarterback would be. Did they get the right guy? This, that, and the other in Missouri. He did look good. And, I'm not breaking any news here by saying that quarterback play is going to determine an outcome of a game. Like, duh. But it really does come down to me. Can Kansas's defense do enough to slow him down, or can Missouri's defense do enough to slow Daniels down? And that's a big question that I have in this, is how much can they limit Bo?
Yeah, I mean, this is the same Bo Pribula who did win the job at Penn State and comes out of there as the second fiddle. I mean, Missouri just picked up a backup quarterback to be their starter for their organization because Drew Adler is still with the Nittany Lions. I don't know if that's sexy enough to jump off the page and me say, wow, he's going to be the guy. Because if you look at what he did at Penn State, he was very good against bad teams. He was very good in bad moments. When they needed somebody to come into a game because it was a blowout, Bo was the guy. And for Missouri, he got to come into the game and play in a blowout because it was just already going to be a blowout against UCA. In Columbia, 23 for 28 last week. He was good. I don't have a lot to knock what he did in that game. A passer rating of 190, also solid. And 10 carries for 65 yards, a couple of touchdowns. His ability to run the football is going to be key for Missouri this season. And that's why I think Missouri is still an 8 or 9 win team this year. Where I do believe he will be stifled, DJ Withers has emerged as one of the better defensive tackles in the country for Kansas. 6'4", 300-pound kid, a senior out of Little Rock. He has been a dog. Trey Lathan, the linebacker for Kansas, has been Again, a dog, 12 tackles his first 2 games, a Florida product, a junior who could be great next season if he doesn't go to the NFL. That's where I believe the continuity of a Kansas defense can make them so deadly in a game like this on the road. And let's be honest with ourselves. I grew up in SEC country. I grew up going to football games from Tuscaloosa to Baton Rouge to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and College Station, Texas. And Columbia, Missouri has one of the worst atmospheres in the entire SEC. This is not a scary place to go play. I don't think Kansas is going to walk in through these doors, especially after the last year playing in Arrowhead, and go, wow, what a palace of a college football stadium. It's just not a great place for college football. It's just not a good facility. And that's where things will bode well for the Jayhawks. It reminds me a little bit of that Kansas State game when Kansas State came in, played Missouri, and lost on that 60-yard field goal, whatever it was. But I think this is where the result flips, and you see Kansas win it 30-27, 27-24. The Jayhawks get the best because their defense is so much improved. I still have plenty of question marks about even Ahmad Hardy running the football for Missouri is a guy who comes in out of the transfer portal. They have question marks at some of their best positions because of the lack of continuity. Kansas doesn't have that issue. They know how to play together. If you go on ESPN right now, you read the stats of all the players for both teams. On the Kansas side, every headshot is a kid in a Jayhawks jersey because he's been there for a few years. He knows the system. He knows Lance Leipold, and they don't have Jeff Grimes holding them down. And then on the other side, the Missouri Tigers, it's like, oh, well, that's a dude's headshot from Penn State. That's from Louisiana Monroe. That's from West Virginia. It's just different. They don't have the same nucleus that the Kansas Jayhawks bring into this game, and I think that's what sets it apart.
Biggest question I have for this, we kind of saw this and I don't think these are exactly comparable because I think Auburn has a really, really good offensive line. But the trench play between Auburn and Baylor, to me, was the difference in that game. It's what let Auburn continuously just move the ball very effectively. Do you worry about that at all in this game? Just Kansas' O-line, D-line against, I know Missouri's not in our upper tier of the SEC, but kind of a mid-tier SEC team. Do you kind of worry about the trenches at all?
Not with Missouri. I mean, I do with LSU and Alabama and the schools that have, the Oregon.
Yeah, Alabama even, a little bit less at this point, but go ahead.
That have the millions of dollars to throw around. Missouri's not blessed with that. Kansas isn't either. This is still what we love about college football. These are two teams that aren't built by $50 million rosters, but Josiah Trotter, I thought he looked really good at linebacker for Missouri. He's a sophomore, 6'2", 237. That's a pretty good-sized linebacker, but it's not something that's going to blow Kansas away. And by the way, he transferred from West Virginia. Kansas has already seen them. Damon Wilson, I should say. He's a defensive end who's 6'4", 250. I'm looking for, I'm thinking SEC, and we learned this a little bit. You mentioned with Auburn, we learned it with Alabama. We learned it, we're learning which of these schools actually have the big, bad offensive and defensive lines. I'm not looking at your best DN being 250 pounds. I want to see 280. That's where I'm like, that's an SEC kid that can run a 4.6 at 280. He's going to be a monster. Missouri doesn't have that. Now, Kansas doesn't either. I think it's a very evenly played game in the trenches. The difference overall, and I already mentioned continuity, having guys that have been in your program, but even Emmanuel Henderson Jr., if you want to mention, well, what about the transfers? Does anybody get Alabama kid playing wide receiver for Kansas that leads the team right now and is one of the fastest players in college football? Dylan Highshaw, he's not a transfer. He's a senior that's growing up there, 5'10", but 220 pounds at running back. When that comes running toward you, that is a freight train. I don't believe Jalen Daniels, 6 foot, 220 pounds. This is a meaty, large Kansas team. I don't believe that I mentioned Withers earlier, 6'4", 300. I don't believe the size difference is going to make as large of an impact as folks think it will when you say SEC versus Big 12. Yeah, Auburn beat Baylor and Auburn whipped them around, but I said this on my show this week. If you're the SEC and you're waving the flag look at us, we're so good because Auburn's back. If Auburn's one of the best teams in the SEC, I don't think it's something that you should be bragging about right now. I'm not sure if that is a great sign for the conference, so I'm not worried about the size differential.
What was your score one more time on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with I do think Kansas can take this game into the upper 20s, maybe 30 points. Let me even it out a bit and go 27-24. It's a field goal difference for Kansas. They're going to win it by 3.
I did a show earlier this week, and I am 75% sure that was the score that I gave. So I'm sticking with 27. Yeah, same.
You
same
flip
thing.
it though. You go Mizzou.
No, both. So I do a show live on Wednesdays called The Power 2. Monday and Wednesday now. The Power 2, obviously an ode to the Big Ten and the SEC because they are those guys. And I try to go the opposite way on a lot of stuff. Like I picked Miami, I picked Kansas in this one, I picked Baylor. But anyway, yeah, I took Kansas, and I think that was my score. So if it wasn't, I'm changing my score to that now. But I definitely was the only one to pick Kansas. So
good.
Let's get the Jayhawks.
I like it. Go Jayhawks. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is exactly where I go to say, hey, I'm going to take the Missouri money line. I'm going to take the Kansas money line against Missouri because I believe that Kansas will win this football game. And the NFL is also almost here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff. If your first $5 bet hits, you just put $5 in. If it hits, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it's you betting like however you want to bet. Player props, building same game parlays, even jumping in the live action as it unfolds. Makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on a fantasy matchup. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet for up to $300 in free play. That's pretty awesome. You should do that. I would do that if I was you. I'm going to do it myself. That's FanDuel.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Monarch Money. I'm 24 years of age, pretty new, fresh, sprightly. Monarch Money is here to help me. 401k, properties, investments, all that stuff. As I want to get into expanding my portfolio, Monarch Money does it for me. Easy to use interface on my laptop or my phone, and it's like 3 apps combined into one. It helps me because of my busy lifestyle. I get smart categorization of my spending and finally feel in control of my money. It even helps during tax season. You can go in and identify that you aren't saving as much as you thought, and you can see why you aren't and fix it. It's like an accountability tool that doesn't scream at you week to week or long-term financial health, all at Monarch Money. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year, 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com and do it today.
BYU and Stanford, a good old-fashioned Big 12 ACC matchup. I can't even get through that without laughing. Listen, all right, no, this is actually where I want to start with that one. Is it? I hope I don't get in trouble for this. Is it ironic that after getting rid of Retzlaff, they win a game 69-0? Like, is that? Am I allowed to make that joke, or am I going to get in trouble? But anyway,
everyone's been exonerated. I'm
not in school right now, so I can make that joke. Is there anything you can glean from a 69-0 loss? I liked what you said in our last segment, that you can't glean a lot of positive, but you at least know that your floor is not we suck, right? Like when you beat bad teams the way they beat Portland State, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't catch that one live, sorry. But when you beat teams like that, 69, you at least establish that you're not a bad team, right? You may not be great because you beat a bad team, but you're not on their level. You're much better than the absolute worst case scenario of 2-10 FSU. So, but how much can you glean from that? And then just early thoughts on that Stanford game.
If we could somehow put, and this is just the BYU-Stanford matchup before I kind of give you the context and talk about last week. If we could somehow put the TCU-North Carolina game on steroids, that's what this is going to be. This is going to be a mockery of college football. Stanford may score negative points. They may score more points for BYU than they do themselves, which is hard to do, but they will find a way. They could be the worst. Legitimately, I mean this, the worst Power 4 college football team that we've seen since those putrid Kansas teams of 8 years ago. And what I do know about BYU is, again, they don't suck. If they had gotten a situation where they lose to Portland State, never would have happened, or they win 35-34 like Kansas State did similar against North Dakota, that's where I say, okay, your floor is going to be at that 2 or 3 win level. That is not good. You have not showcased to me that your floor is high. When you win a game by so many points, because it's the only thing you can do. BYU could have won by 110. They could have won 55-0. We'd be having the same conversation. There is no difference in those scores other than you beat the crap out of someone who's not good at college football. For BYU, what that tells me, because you didn't struggle, you didn't lose, is that you don't completely suck. That's the first thing I need to learn. Now, this week against an FBS opponent, I need to know, hey, when you play guys who are a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, do you still not suck? Stanford would lose to North Dakota State. Stanford would lose to South Dakota. They would lose to South Dakota State. They would lose to Sacramento State by double digits. They would lose to anybody at the top of the FCS by double digits and maybe even more. They lost to Hawaii 23-20, and we just saw Hawaii get blown out by Arizona 40-6. And I don't think Arizona is going to be very good this season. Again, transitive property doesn't always work in college football. But if we're breaking down how good Stanford is, it's not. It's zero. There is nothing here. There's no saving factor for a team that's been off for a week now and needed it after they lost to Hawaii 23-20. Their starting quarterback in that game against the Rainbow Warriors, 15 for 30 with an interception. That's not good. I mean, they ran the football decently. Their leading receiver, 1 catch, 36 yards. This is just bad, man. This is just, it's really sad. BYU is favored by 18.5. They're at home. It's one of those 10:30 Eastern kickoffs as well. I'm taking BYU minus the 18.5. I think over 46.5 is going to hit because BYU can hit it themselves. Stanford's defense is not going to do anything. That Arizona held Hawaii to 6 points. Stanford allowed them to score 23. This is going to be a bloodbath where BYU blows out. If you go to any of the betting sites, BYU is going to make a mockery of Stanford to the tune of hitting the over themselves and winning by 18.5 easily.
Bachmeier had 97 yards, 3 touchdowns, only threw the ball 11 times. Do you think they let him open it up a little bit more? Or if the run is effective, which it certainly was with Martin having 131 yards this weekend, do you think they try to let him open it up a little bit more for games later down the road where they'll need him to throw the ball more?
No, I hope not. Like, what was crazy about watching this BYU game, and I watched every Big 12 game this weekend and learned a lot about every Big 12 team. And I again, what I learned about BYU is that Bear Bachmeier doesn't suck. Is he going to be a Heisman quarterback this season? I don't know. And I won't know until they play somebody legit and he proves himself. What I did see, though, is a guy who opens the ball game, handing the ball off really well. And then he himself rushing 5 times, 32 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's solid. And BYU, once they got up like 35-0 or 28-0, they started to let him throw the ball just to see what he could do. And there toward the end of the first half, he was slinging the ball around the yard, made some really good tight throws into small windows. And that gave me the confidence Bear Bachmeier isn't going to pee down his leg when in a moment where he's got to go out first, second, third drive against a Big 12 team, against a Power 4 team. Now he gets to play a Power 4 team, just one of the worst ones you could possibly concoct. I do believe that BYU will allow Bachmeier to throw more than 11 times. I would be surprised if he throws more than 20 times. That's probably not a great sign unless they truly are trying to open the playbook up a little bit more to build his confidence up before they go into, honestly, their toughest non-conference game next week on the road against East Carolina.
Yeah, looking ahead a little bit, we wondered what BYU would be this year. Man, it feels like they've got a really good chance. And this is no slight at anybody else ahead of them. But based on 1 week, and you don't want to have 1 week overreactions, it just doesn't seem like it would be too shocking if they went into that Utah game at 6-0, right? East Carolina, Colorado on the road, and I do think they'll bounce back. West Virginia, Arizona, but they're going to be favored in a lot of these games. And so they could get to that game at 6-0. And my goodness, if we get a holy war of 2 teams that are undefeated, then sign me up for all of the hype around that. But you got to take it 1 week at a time. BYU fans watching this, you know that. But at the same time, neither you nor I are playing. So we're going to talk about it. They have a chance to have a really, really good start to this season and claim bowl eligibility in their first 6 games. I agree. They're going to beat Stanford. They'll win on the road against ECU. They have a bye week prior to that ECU game, which, again, is their first really big test. ECU played North Carolina State pretty well, only lost by 7, but they were down 24-7, had to rally for 10 points in the fourth quarter, came up short. Colorado, that didn't show me much. I mean, it's in Folsom, but we're going to see a more dilapidated crowd, I think, as the season goes on for the Buffs if they do not turn things around and become a top 25 team, again, which is going to be really hard to do after that loss to Georgia Tech. Then West Virginia being in Provo. I think West Virginia is a very good football team. That's a dangerous game within itself. That's a very dangerous game. West Virginia, Nico Marchiol looked good. I watched the entirety of that game as well. And aside from some early fumbles, West Virginia would have won that game. Really, they won it going away, but really going away of 70-plus points. Couldn't take care of the football in the first half and still blew out Robert Morris. They'll be a formidable opponent. BYU should win by 10, but it's going to be tough. Then Arizona on the road. Arizona looked good against Hawaii. Yeah. That still should be 6 games BYU is favored in going into Utah, coming
coming to Rice-Eccles Stadium, or I should say to Lavelle Edwards Stadium after BYU beat them in Rice-Eccles last year. The pomp and the circumstance it's already building for that matchup. I will be on hand for the Holy War this year. I just couldn't miss it. The hotel room is booked. I'm excited. Both teams could be 1-5 when they come in there, and I'm still going to be pumped up. So I think that is shaking up to be one of the bigger matchups in college football. And maybe we don't see College Game Day there, but you'll see me there.
Locked On Big 12 will be there. Give me a score. I know you like them big, but I'm going to make you do it. Maybe not 69-0, but what's your score for this one?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Stanford's got a good kicker. They always seem like a school that would have a good kicker, right? They got soccer's pretty good.
No offense to the kickers, but kind of nerdy,
Yeah, I would go to Stanford too if I was a kicker on a scholarship. BYU is going to hang 55, and Stanford's going to score 3. Maybe 6. But as you're like, oh, that sounds kind of dramatic. Did we not just watch TCU, North Carolina, Big 12 ACC? It's going to be something very similar to that, except Bill Belichick's not coaching for Stanford, so ESPN will not care about this game.
Yeah, I'll go 52-13. I'll say they get a late.
Hey, look, I'm fine with that.
A late touchdown to like UNC did last night, that kind of like garbage time touchdown against the backups.
Also, if you are a betting man, anybody out there, I would bet this line now. It should shift. I wouldn't be surprised if it climbs to 21.5 before kickoff, and that's just dangerous, hook territory, so I'd buy now.
Drake, where can people follow you, get your content?
At Locked On Big 12, wherever you find your podcast, and on YouTube, 5 days, 6 days a week, something like that. Now we are just wall-to-wall coverage of the Big 12 Conference. At Drake C. Toll on Twitter as well.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Always fun, TJ.